In 2016, a protest was held at Oxford University calling for the removal of Cecil Rhodes' statue at Oriel College due to his massive contribution to colonialism, racism, and segregation. The protest was championed by the student movement. Rhodes must fall. Protesters shouted, "Rhodes must fall, take it down." Cecil Rhodes' statue was condemned as an open glorification of the racist and bloody project of British colonialism. When you hear the name Cecil Rhodes, what comes to mind? Is it a man who owned diamond mines in Southern Africa? Is it the Rhodes Scholarship from which thousands of scholars have benefited? Or is it the colonization, exploitation, and segregation of African settlements which not only enriched his pocket but that of the imperial system? If you stick around till the end of this video, you will understand why Cecil Rhodes is known to have one of the most controversial legacies in history. Cecil John Rhodes was born on 5th July 1853 at Bishop's Stortford, Hertfordshire, England, where he grew up as a son of the vicar of Bishop's Stortford. His earliest ambition was to be a barrister or a clergyman. Now you might be wondering how he ended up being an imperialist who owns 2 African countries. Sit tight, you are in for a ride. Cecil's career ambition has been tampered with due to a serious lung disease. Because of the weakness of his lungs and asthma, he was sent to a more subtropical region in Southern Africa. In 1870, shortly after finishing school, he was sent to South Africa to work with his brother, Herbert, on a cotton farm. With life not being so easy at the farm in Natal, and with the budding diamond fever in Griqualand West, they were lured to Kimberley in 1871. Life in Kimberley wasn't particularly a bed of roses, and Herbert became restless. He left Kimberley in 1873 while Cecil remained, determined to make a fortune. He kept investing in diamond digging in Kimberley. He alternated his life between Kimberley and the Oriel College at Oxford, where he got a belated degree after 8 years. In 1880, Rhodes' ambition in the diamond industry led him to form the Beers Mining Company alongside his partner, Charles D. Rhodes. The company was named after 2 brothers, Johannes Nicholas de Beer and Diederik Arnoldus de Beer, who discovered diamonds on a farm they bought in 1871, now acquired by Rhodes. In 1887, he set off to acquire the Kimberley Central Diamond Mining Company, controlled by Babi Banato, who was also a leading force in the diamond industry. After fierce competition, Banato agreed to merge with Rhodes, and this led to form the Beers Consolidated Mines Limited. In 1888, the Beers Consolidated Mines Limited was responsible for about 40% of the world's diamond production by value, and by 1891, they owned 90% of the world's diamond production. Apart from the diamond mines, Rhodes also had a large stake in the Transvaal gold mines. In 1887, he formed the Goldfields of South African Company. You would assume that having amassed wealth and built a fortune, Rhodes would be fulfilled, but this wasn't the case. Even though much of Rhodes' fortune was built from wealth extraction and human exploitation, he wasn't satisfied by it. He desired his legacy to be much more. Rhodes' passionate philosophies about imperialism often fascinated people around him. He sought to unite the southern and northern colonies by building a railing from the southern Cape to the northern Cairo, opening up northern territories to communication, mineral wealth, and white settlement. He pushed to stretch the British Empire by uniting the Boers, that is, the Afrikaners, and British under the British flag. Unfortunately, Rhodes' drive for colonial expansion came at great human cost, as he sought to build a large empire in Southern Africa. He disregarded the rights of the natives already inhabitants in those conquered lands. He signed treaties with African chiefs via dubious means, just like he deceitfully made King Lobengula of Ndebele sign away his entire kingdom and the lands in it to him. But let's not be in such a hurry. We will get there in time. With his imperialist ideas in view, Rhodes went into politics and was elected into Parliament of Cape Colony in 1881. The first obstacle in implementing his expansion plan was Paul Kruger, who was the president of the Transvaal. Kruger stood in the way of his plans of developing the North with his policy, Africa for the Afrikaners. He denied political rights to the Britons and other foreigners who had come to work the gold mines in the Transvaal. After fights with Kruger over the Bechuanaland, now Botswana, Rhodes resigned in protest from the parliament in March 1885 when the northern Bechuanaland was not annexed by the Cape Colony by the Crown. The second obstacle in Rhodes' colonial expansion was the ruler of the Matabele, now Zimbabwe, King Lobengula, who refused to let the whites in. The only white men he could trust were the missionaries, so Rhodes used the son of a missionary, John Moffat, to dubiously achieve his purpose of expansion. Moffat became the assistant commissioner to the Crown Colony in Bechuanaland, and in February 1888 he was able to persuade and convince Lobengula to sign a treaty. Lobengula, hoping that he had only signed to allow the white man to dig a big hole, was ignorant to the fact that he had just signed away his kingdom to the British. In October 1889, by Rhodes' request through the High Commissioner, the British government granted him a charter to a new company, British South Africa Company, to begin development for a new territory. The loophole in the charter was that there was no northern limit to it. Rhodes went beyond what Lobengula signed. He planned to extend control to northern Rhodesia, now Zambia, Nyasaland, now Malawi, and northern Bechuanaland, now Botswana. Rhodes' influence was greatly felt that the new territories were named after him. He later returned to office in 1890 as the Prime Minister of the Cape Colony. In 1891, when Rhodes first visited the inland region of Southern Africa, north of the Limpopo River, he met angry pioneers, so he had to appease them by helping them from his pocket. The British South African Company, in a brutal and violent conquest, colonized the area and called it Rhodesia, in honor of the company's founder, Cecil Rhodes. Northern Rhodesia later became present-day Zambia in 1964, and Southern Rhodesia became present-day Zimbabwe in 1980, after an intense fight for independence. As the Prime Minister of the Cape Colony, Rhodes moved cautiously with Native African policy. The Franchise and Ballot Act was passed in 1892, limiting native votes by educational and financial qualifications. Rhodes looked down on the native Africans and thought them uncivilized. In 1877, Rhodes called for the British, the finest race in the world, to rehabilitate the most despicable of human beings by bringing them under the British dominion. Rhodes also had a significant hand in segregation. He passed a bill in 1894 that enforced segregation of native Africans, further disenfranchising them. The bill was called the Glen Grey Bill, or a Bill for Africa, which allocated an area exclusively for African development. He wanted to please the British and the Dutch and prevent them from quarreling about race policy. Some of the bills Rhodes passed as Prime Minister paved the way for the discriminatory apartheid policies that were implemented in South Africa later in the 20th century. In 1895, Rhodes' career as Prime Minister of Cape Colony was badly affected by the actions of his close friend and BSAC administrator, Leander Starr Jameson. Jameson decided to recklessly launch a plan to raid the Transvaal on his own, which backfired and became a total disaster for Rhodes. Rhodes was obliged to resign from his political office and the chartered company. In all of this, he still refused to denounce Jameson. The Jameson raid played an influential role in instigating the start of the 1899 Anglo-Boer War. Rhodesia and Bechuanaland were also taken over by the imperial government. 1896, Rhodes returned from England to curb an uprising happening in Matabeleland. He held a successful peace conference. In the middle of this, he found a site called View of the World in Matopo Hills, where he was later buried. The Rhodes Matopos National Park was later founded in 1902 and named after him. In 1901, he was called back to Cape Town to give evidence against Princess Rhodesia, an aristocrat adventuress with whom he had an unlucky relationship. She manipulated Rhodes and forged letters and bills of exchange in his name to promote her personal ideas of the British Empire. At this time, Rhodes' health was already failing. He was dying of an incurable heart disease. He finally died in March 1902 at age 49, before the Princess Rhodesia trial was over and even before the Boer War ended. In April 1902, Rhodes' will was read, and it greatly appealed to the public. In the will, he explained a scheme for young men from the colonies, Germany, and the United States to be awarded a scholarship at Oxford University. The wealth he left behind was dedicated to the scholarship. Prominent people have benefited from the Rhodes Scholarship, including former President Bill Clinton. While Cecil Rhodes was honored and praised as a national hero by the colonial empire, he was resented by the majority of black natives for his colonial legacy, involvement in setting up imperialist systems in Southern Africa, and his role in disenfranchising and segregating the resident black native. In March 2015, a student at the University of Cape Town threw a bucket of human feces at a statue of Cecil Rhodes. A student movement, Rhodes Must Fall, was birthed. In 2016, the process was replicated at Oxford University, calling for the removal of a statue at Oriel College. While a petition was being passed online demanding that the statue be taken down, a 300-man protest happened right outside Oriel College. Just 6 weeks after Oriel College pledged to gather evidence to decide the future of the statue, they went back on their pledge, stating that they got overwhelming support to keep it. What Oriel College did not say was that they could potentially lose millions of donor gifts if they took down the statue. To pacify the protesters, the college installed an explanatory plaque describing Rhodes as a committed British colonialist who obtained his fortune through exploitation of minerals, land, and peoples of Southern Africa months later. What do you think about Cecil Rhodes' legacy? Share your thoughts in the comment section. Also, like, share, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you can get alerted when new videos are uploaded. And on that note, I'll be catching you on the next one. Cheers, guys.